Welcome to the Bucher and Friends podcast, co-starring 10-year NBA center Ryan Hollins.
Couple pump fakes, leans in, shot blocked by Ryan Hollins. Hollins sent that into the third row.
6 rebounds and 8 assists.
Hollins climbs the stairs.
Down the floor. Ryan Hollins! He is the high jumper!
That's what I want to see. Give me some gunpowder and throw the hammer down.
And now, here is your host,
Let's send it over to Ric Bucher.
Ric Bucher.
Welcome to another episode of Bucher and Hollins, subsidiary of Bucher and Friends, part of the United WeCast Network. I'm Ric Bucher. You can read my stuff on Bleacher Report. You can find me on Twitter at Ric Bucher. He is Ryan Hollins, former NBA center. You can find him on Twitter at the Ryan Hollins, on Instagram at Ryan Hollins, and on ESPN TV, Clippers broadcasts, NBA radio now and then, and obviously here every Thursday and Friday.
What's ESPN TV?
You know what?
NBA TV?
That's really good. I was thinking NBA TV, and I'm just talking off the top of my head. By the way, you can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Bucher Friends. As always, if you enjoy the show, or even if you don't, just drop us a rating. It's really simple. You go to iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, and just click on the stars. That's all you do. You move your cursor to the stars. You click how many stars you want, and that's basically it. And now you've rated us. And if you screenshot the rating and tweet it to us, we can do something extra for you. If you tweet it to at Bucher and Friends, actually at Bucher Friends, you'll be eligible to win some prizes. All right, on with the show. So I want to start. I had Richard Jefferson, NBA champion, close with Luke Walton. Also has the highest regard for LeBron James, played with Jason Kidd. And I was asking him about what he sees with the Lakers. And obviously he sees that it's problematic. But he was of the mind that LeBron James really hasn't fallen off. He's playing the same defense he has for the last 7 years. He's not going to gauge him on that. But he said, look, he was injured. He missed a number of games. He believes that LeBron is still injured, and that's why we're seeing him play at the level that he's playing. What do you make of that, Ryan Hollins? Do you buy the idea that LeBron really hasn't fallen off as much as people seem to think he has? Or is this Richard Jefferson close with LeBron, giving him a little bit of an out, a little bit of an alibi, maybe seeing this through those wine and gold glasses that afforded him a championship?
There's a little bit of both, Rick. Obviously they have things internally that they have to figure out. LeBron James can still play at a high level, but you have to understand his injury. And this is an injury that, to my knowledge, LeBron has never had. So when you have a muscular injury, it's different than a bruise or an elbow or something that's sore, like a thigh bruise. You just go play through a thigh bruise. The tough part about a groin is that he may be uncomfortable running at 100% effort because there's a fear that, or maybe he's feeling something that his groin isn't 100%. And what can happen is you can go and rip that thing even more. And especially if LeBron didn't have a correct level of treatment and activity before kind of jumping into full scale, basketball play, because he didn't have the necessary time to, and he didn't have, the 3 to 4 weeks to kind of progress and build up. He just jumps into the game. So you have to be careful with that type of groin pull, hamstring pull, any of those pulled muscles. It's tender. There's a mental thing where you can still feel it a little bit, and one step, one movement, and that thing can go. Well,
and especially for a groin injury, that or a hip injury, maybe a stomach injury, anything around your core as a basketball player, yeah, I would think is the most difficult to deal with, because all it takes is kind of one. You don't trust it. You're hesitant, and if you're hesitant at the speed that the game is played, I believe that you're lost. There are 22 games left as we're recording this while the Lakers are in the midst of playing the Pelicans in another close contest. They are at present 3.5 games out of the 8th playoff spot, and there are 22 games left. They have to leapfrog the Kings and the Clippers at the very least in order to get that 8th spot. San Antonio and Clippers are actually in a virtual tie for the 7th and 8th spots. Are you viewing the Lakers as still being a team that is going to get there? Is LeBron going to be able to drag them there? Or are you having your doubts at this point?
I got zero doubts. I've seen LeBron in impossible situations too many times before. I've seen this man in stressful situations too many times before. It's funny. People almost allude to LeBron as if like he's soft, like he doesn't compete. And the one thing that makes LeBron who he is that he shows up in big moments. And yeah, this is different than Michael. This is different than Kobe because LeBron will say, I'm going to take the night off. It didn't work out. Where Michael or Kobe was going to play to the buzzer.
Yep.
They're going to stick their hand in your face and say, hey, I'll see you next time. And then you saw, huge performances out of them. But you also saw Michael Jordan at the end of his career at this stage in LeBron's career, his body was absolutely run down and torn up.
Yeah.
And you saw Kobe Bryant literally run out of his Achilles, looking back at Harrison Barnes and going, dude, why would you kick me? And he's like, dude, Kobe, I didn't kick you. And Kobe gave it all he had trying to drag that team to the playoffs. So when you look at LeBron James, he knows how to pace himself. Now, obviously, he does so many things in which we can't stand, and he puts you in these situations, Rick, and I know you know several of them, to where you're like, there's no way this happens, bro. I had this man down 3-2 at the house with a chance to go to the NBA Finals, and LeBron put on one of the most special performances I've ever seen. Last year, how many Game 7s did he see? I mean, there was just so much from LeBron, Rick, that I will not count him out. I stand with assuredness.
Yeah, I get that. I suppose the injury and not knowing exactly the level or the depth of the effect that it's having on him and his ability to do that. And what really sort of puzzles me, so I was there. I saw the Lakers Rockets. I saw LeBron pacing himself in the first half. And then I saw him turn it on down the stretch to end up winning that game. Turned it on, got it done. And I thought, okay, that LeBron can drag this team.
By the way, LeBron just came down the middle and had a tomahawk against the Pelicans right now.
Yes.
Absolute terror. Oh, Kyle Kuzma down the middle with a bang, bang again. Oh, Rick, I'm sorry. This is happening live.
And did you see Rondo with the pass that set up the LeBron James tomahawk?
It's funny you said Rondo. So many people forget playoff Rondo. Like, he needs to wake up. And right now, he's like, no, it's real. Hey, man, if I'm going in a foxhole and I got 5 NBA guys to choose to have my back, to fight with me, my top 1 or 2, and I'm trying to just be objective here. Rondo's in my 1 or 2.
Yeah.
If I know I got it, this dude has to protect me with my have my back, with my life in hand, and he has to take me home to my kids after this war. I'm trusting Rondo.
Yeah. No, I've actually started to work. I want to do a piece on Rondo because of the impact that he's had on so many teams, and yet does not seem to be able to hook on to any one particular team. Still seems to have some radioactivity around him as far as the league is concerned. But I had a chance to talk to Mo Wagner, of all people, or Wagner, if you will.
Wagner.
And he loves Rondo. Like, that, it's one more young guy that I've talked to who just thinks the world of Rondo, feels like he's learned so much from him. And that's when there was some rumors bubbling up this past week of questions of Rondo, and I think it was James Worthy actually kind of put it out there that that Rondo was somehow a deterrent. And maybe the words that Worthy said were twisted into something that he did not mean. Maybe they were, as far as I can tell, maybe he was applying them to that particular game and not his overall effect on the team. But the sense that I get with Rondo, and you saw the celebration around him when he hit the buzzer beater against Boston, is that he is a beloved teammate, and he's a beloved teammate everywhere that he goes, every locker room that he's been in. And I know we often say it. I've said it about Derrick Rose. There are a number of guys around the league. I think maybe even Russ Westbrook fits in this category. There are certain guys that I just think the public perception and the media presentation or interpretation of them is so far from what I hear from the guys who actually play with them.
Yeah, man. No, he's just going to he's going to be so honest with you, man. He's just going to be so honest with you. That's the thing, Rick. He's going to be so honest, and he doesn't care. There's certain moments, Rick, like when it comes to talking to media or something happens, you kind of bite your tongue and say, I'm not going to win this one. Leave it alone. This dude's not going to bite his tongue, and he's accomplished enough in the league where he necessarily shouldn't have to, but it's got him in some trouble, Rick. And we can't sugarcoat that. But as far as the locker room, he ain't with all that NBA life fakeness. I'm this, I'm that. Look at my car. I'm better than you. I made this. I'm the cool guy. He's the anti, bro. He's the anti.
Man, I tell you what, he competes too. He tries to play the game. Tries to play the game the right way. And I know, look, there's times where defensively, especially I think in Boston, you probably experienced this. Like, I thought there were times where he played for the steal too often, and he kind of left. He'd leave his team out to dry. He didn't sometimes try to get a little too tricky at that end. But for the most part, everything that he does is really about that aside. How do I play the game that's going to help my teammates the most? That's the impression I get. You played with him. You'd know better.
I've never known a guy in my entire career of playing basketball ever that would work on before the game passing. I guess it's a selfish thing. Everybody's like, let me get my shot. Let me get in my groove. Like, he'd get on the rim. He'd have a ball boy give him the ball, and he'd hit guys on the money. He'd work on – I cannot make this up. He just does so many things, man. He's a different dude, bro. He's different.
By the way, so ESPN has Jeff Van Gundy and Stan Van Gundy as the broadcasters on this game tonight. And I haven't been listening, and I know both of them, and I feel like I've heard enough from both of them that nothing personal or anything. It's just, I don't know. It doesn't really capture my imagination. But I have to say, between the money that they've made as coaches and as broadcasters, and I'm not saying they're stealing money by calling them Jesse James and Jesse James 1 and Jesse James 2, but their ability to milk money out of being in the NBA for, they're good. Are they? Neither one of them's won a championship. I mean, neither one of them's actually coached in the finals. Like, I just think it's kind of amazing. Every once in a while you run into somebody and you're like, wow, they're everywhere and they're getting things done. What do you think it is? Like, I'm not sure what the secret of the success is for the Van Gundys, but they're doing something right.
You got to think about this, Rick. Here's something that you really left out.
Okay.
Jeff is the last coach to have success in New York, or the most recent. So he's essentially immortalized himself until Kevin Durant shows up or something.
So long ago, though, bruh.
It lasts, man. You asked why that name rings bells still. It lasts. And as far as broadcasting, there's something about hearing, Jeff talk, and he's like the everyday guy to you.
Yeah.
Like,
he looks like the everyday guy.
He looks like the everyday guy. He's not arrogant. He's not cocky. He's very realistic. But you look, and it's just, you relate to him. There's something about him. You see him and you like him and you relate to him. He's a pretty cool guy. If you had no idea who he was off the street and you just heard him broadcast wise, that's how you'd feel. And then Stan was always famously robbed of a championship in Miami with Dwyane Wade and Shaq and all that. And, Shaq didn't have the greatest name as far as behind the scenes in the NBA. Right. So, Stan really kind of came out shining in there. And it was just like, well, how do you, Pat Riley looked like this jerk. Well, Pat, how do you take over and do this to Stan? And, Pat Riley was selfish and Shaq was, heartless, the whole, that whole deal.
Well, and then we had the whole Dwight Howard episode where he looked like the good guy there too, where Stan's basically saying he's trying to get me fired, and Dwight comes out, giving him a hug and looked like, yeah, Stan's got that everyday guy, that every guy look as well. I will tell you, one of my first Jeff Van Gundy experiences, he was still in New York. And this was back when the coaches, if they had like a pregame press conference, they would just invite you into their office, whether it was at home or it was even on the road. They invite you in the coach's office, and the writers would just hang out because largely there wasn't a whole lot of TV. And I'm standing kind of behind him, looking over the top of him behind his chair as he's talking. And so I'm looking straight down at his dome, and he has plugs, the hair implants. and it's like seaweed. He had like the starter kit. It might have been like the free sample. I don't know what it was, because there was only, I don't know, like 7 or 8 little clumps of long hair. And it was one of those moments where I thought, wow, Jeff Van Gundy is the head coach of the New York Knicks, and he's got really bad hair implants, and nobody's ever going to think anything other than these are hair implants, because there weren't enough to make you think it was real hair. I mean, it was almost like an advertisement, right? It was almost one of those in the process videos. And the next time I saw him, they were gone, and he had gone to the clean dome look. So he clearly realized that what he was going for was not going to work. But it was one of those things where you just, you see guys, you see NBA head coaches, and same with players, like their coolness, the cool factor, under pressure, generally dressed to the nines, although I wouldn't say that Jeff really ever captured that, and Stan didn't either. But nonetheless, when you just see like a faux pas like that, it's like a major social mistake like that, it really does ring your bell a little bit, thinking, wow, I can't believe the head coach of the New York Knicks has got to look this bad.
Well, it's time to come on home sometimes. And, when you're on TV, it's kind of a tough transition to make, man. You just, so many people see you, man, and you can just feel the energy sucked out of a room,
brother.
Man.
I mean, right? I don't know if you've had that experience, but boy, if there was like the least bit, I'll never forget. There was one at Madison Square Garden, again, speaking in New York. I was covering the draft, and we had a makeup lady who put it on heavy. And as a result, when I was on TV, I looked orange. I looked like one of the what were the orange people in the Wizard of Oz?
Oh gosh, Oompa Loompa.
Oompa Loompas, yeah. I mean, and I wasn't, and it's one of those things like you're not always you don't always recognize it just looking in the mirror how orange you are, but then you go on TV and the light can play havoc with things. So
I had an issue like that on First Take, where the lady, she made me like I was pale white. Like almost like I literally like powdered my face, and I'm like, I respectfully said the next day, hey, this is, because she was a sweetheart, Rick. Yeah. And I said, hey, can you go light on the makeup? I really don't need much, and I don't want to look, powdered. And somebody else was working on me, and she got offended and go, what happened? I did your makeup yesterday. I said, yeah, man, you did an amazing job, but it was, you're telling a woman how to do her job. And I'm like, but I just want something lighter. I'm a guy. I don't want the whole, you don't got to cover me up. But, First Take, you're not just doing a straightaway.
Right.
They'll spin around.
It's all kinds of angles. Yeah.
So
360
you
angles.
saw it, bro. You saw a difference, like from my neck to my face looked like something different. It's like, no, we can't do that, sweetheart. You gotta take care of me. You got to take care of me, But she was so sweet. I felt bad doing it, but I'm like, man, I'm gonna be the one on TV, getting laughed at.
Yeah, she can't. I have questions about a makeup artist who gets sensitive when there are issues like that. Unless she, if she says, "Hey, can I see what you look like on TV?" If she didn't see it. Or she didn't investigate first, and she just gets offended because you question something. It's like, hey, I'm not trying to take your job. I'm not trying to tell you how to do your job, but we're conscious of the way we look when we go on, because we're going to hear it from everybody. I did a promo for a radio station, and same thing. Like the lady put in like orange eyebrows on me. I don't know what it is with the color, with the orange that I keep getting, but
you're redhead, bro. They don't know what to do.
Well, and I don't. And the thing is, I have blonde eyebrows, so you don't see them. So I know what she was going for, but not a good look. All right, enough of that. One of the other things I wanted to hit with you is that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, in order to fund his foundation, which is really to aid education of young people, is selling off all of his memorabilia, and some pretty amazing memorabilia, like his 4 championship rings and the last basketball that he played with in his last game, autographed, worn jerseys. I mean, you name it. A treasure trove when we're talking about a guy who we should talk more about as maybe the best player of all time. And I just wonder what you think. Like, how interested would you be in purchasing any of Kareem's memorabilia?
I'm highly interested. I just can't afford it. Okay, we'll make that statement now. I'm 2 feet on that. I just know it's not realistic.
Right.
Second thought in my head is,
let's go before we leave that. What would you pay? Like, what would most interest you? One of the rings, the jersey, the ball. Like, of all the memorabilia, you could have any piece of memorabilia from Kareem. What would you most want to have?
Oh, a ring. You take a ring.
Yeah.
But to me, no, I wouldn't take a ring, because I don't feel like anybody else should have his ring. I would take a jersey. I would take a game-worn jersey. Like, to me, a ring, I wouldn't feel right, because I would feel like, nah, this is his. You know what I'm saying? As a player, I wouldn't feel right having another man's championship ring, because I don't feel like anybody else should possess that. You know, I take a jersey. Rick.
Yeah. I'd probably go with the ball, just because I'm not a big memorabilia guy. I threw out a first pitch, and I have that autographed, and so that's one of my treasures.
Was this in the Bay Area?
Yeah, the Giants A's game. I threw out the first pitch, and Stephen Vogt was my catcher, who I think the world of, and he signed it, and that's a treasure. Ideally, I'm with you. I don't know that I could afford any of Jabbar's memorabilia. This is what I would like to do if I could, is that I would buy it, and then I would give it back to him and allow him to utilize the money for the purpose. Because I think it's such a great idea, and it's so thoughtful. And I'd like to think that if I would do the same, because you get things, you have these things and you put them up on your shelf and they collect dust. And he's finding a way to translate that into experiences for young kids. He's allowing that memorabilia to actually be something valuable to others. And I don't know about you, but I've always felt like the experience of winning a championship, a ring, a job well done, whatever it might be, whatever accomplishment it is, it's the memory of the experience and what I went through to get it. That's what I treasure the most.
Oh, by the way, Lance Stevenson's down. He hasn't moved. I don't know what happened.
We're doing a podcast, but we're giving you live updates on a game that will be well over by the time that you guys listen to this. But nonetheless,
it's part of the deal.
Clearly, it's part of the deal. By the way, Kings and Bucks are in a close one. 3.7 seconds left in OT, and the Bucks are up by 2. Since we're going to go full smorgasbord
there you go,
updates.
Rick. Gosh.
All right. How much would you pay? Let's say you could set the price. How much would you pay in order to get that ring? Like, what would it be like that you could afford, that you would say, oh, you know what, I really want it. This is what I'd be willing to pay.
My integrity wouldn't let me do it, but my business sense would say, if somehow I can get it for $5 or $10,000 and then go flip it for more, I'd do it.
Yeah. Oh, look at you. Okay.
But I wouldn't do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing. Like $5-10,000 for something like that. But again, I'm with you. That's what I don't get when people purchase. There's certain heirlooms. There's certain historic things like, Wilt's 100, maybe something like that. But beyond that, like for me to purchase the jersey that a guy won a championship in, I felt the same way when I covered teams that won championships, and I was always given access to particularly if I was working on a story, to be behind the scenes and to be in the locker room after they ushered everybody out, or to be in the coach's room, or to hang out with guys afterward when they're celebrating. And it always was a little bittersweet for me because I was watching guys just revel in this accomplishment, and I was supposed to write about it and get as close to it as I could, knowing that I had nothing to do with it. Like, you're right there in this massive achievement that people have worked, in some cases, their entire careers to accomplish, and you're a bystander. It's a very weird place to be.
Pull guys away from their families, or like something like, hey, I need this interview, like, but you're having this lifetime moment, you know, but I got to write a story.
Yeah, and in most of those cases, like, I would try to be as least obtrusive as possible. And in many cases, it was observing them with their families. Like, I didn't want to interview them. I wanted to capture the scene of them celebrating this achievement and figure out, some other time I could interview them and get their thoughts. But in the moment, I just wanted to observe. But even in observing, it was like I was observing people having, the pinnacle of their career. And and the best I could do is try to relate that to people as much as possible, to be right there in front row seat for somebody achieving something. I don't know. It was always a weird place for me. Speaking of achieving championships and all of that, Warriors lose for a second time to the Miami Heat. They lose on a buzzer beater by Dwyane Wade. Actually blocked the first time, double clutched it, banks it in, beats the buzzer. People are now all up about, Dwyane Wade shouldn't be retiring. He can still play. My son actually said it to me earlier today. Do you think that maybe Wade is leaving a little too early?
So this is a roster thing. If this was a stacked team and he was on there, and I think that's kind of what he wants to do in Cleveland with LeBron, I would say maybe come back another year. If there's a scenario like that, he's on the Warriors right now, and he's the 10th man on the Warriors. Go out with a ring. Or Miami's in that scenario for him. Yeah, come back another year. But the reality is he's not going to join the Warriors. He's got too much pride. LeBron's not quite ready yet, so to seem. Maybe LeBron is a guy in LA. If LeBron gets KD, he gets a couple of guys. Wade comes on board for another year that way. But Rick, he physically cannot put together back-to-back games. There's certain movements he just cannot do. Can he give you 5 good minutes? Can he give you 10 good minutes? Heck, can he hit a game winner? Yeah. But he cannot give you a full season, and it would not be worth it in Miami. What do you get, the 8th seed in the playoffs? If is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, and it's the other part that we don't know is how much work that he's having to put in to get his body to where he can do what he's doing. And I saw it with Kobe at the end. I mean, Kobe had to spend all day, every day, just trying to get himself right for 7:30. And even then, there were some days that were better than others. And I just think that has to be a mental grind for a guy who's achieved as much as they've achieved, to say, I'm going to dedicate myself all my spare time to make myself able to play at a lesser level than I ever have before, to grab a few more moments of glory, but for what, ultimately? Like, where is this team going? Where am I going? It really comes down to, how is my time most well spent? And maybe you just get to a point where it's too much. I don't know how it was for you, because I felt like if you really wanted to continue to play overseas, or you continued to want to play on some level, you could have. I feel as if you just made the conscious decision. It's time for me to move on.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely still play overseas. I can still play in the NBA, but the reality is I'm not waiting for a 10-day and joining the G League and holding on to something that's not there. I just feel like I had too much self-value, Rick. Personally, that was my dad. Like, I have too much self-value and pride in myself that I am bigger than relying on a phone call from somebody else. And at that, I got a family that I got to feed. So if I'm gonna make a move, I got to make the move now. I just means too much to me to be holding on to something and not have my my fate, my career in hand.
Yeah. That is well said. So, mention that the Warriors lost once again to the Heat. People think it's a foregone conclusion that they will be coming out of the West. And before, by the way, mentioned Dwyane Wade. You mentioned him going to the Lakers. You believe that the Lakers will get there. LeBron will get there. Let's say, for the sake of discussion, that they don't. How much of a setback is that for LeBron and the development of this Lakers team?
If they don't make it, it's a huge mark to his career because you're going to look back and go, well, you should have stayed in Cleveland. Maybe you should have entertained a couple other teams like a Philadelphia in free agency. Heck, you should have stayed on the East Coast. That narrative will explode. Mark to his career, no one can take away from LeBron what LeBron has done. And he's playing at a high level, far beyond Kobe, far beyond Michael, far beyond any of those guys. Obviously, he's, you look at it realistically, not as a fan, and say, we're still talking about this dude at a high level as the best player on the planet a lot longer than we've spoken about anybody else. I mean, maybe Kareem had a lot of efficiency with that sky hook on into his, he's darn near 50 years old with it. But LeBron, with the ball in his hands, he just had a completely different load. As far as offseason, Rick, and I know you're ready to jump in, I mean, it's a fire sale, bro. I just think these young guys will lose value, a lot of value, and which puts LeBron behind if you don't even get to see them in the playoffs.
Yeah. How much of an impact do you think it would have on acquiring another superstar? The difference between joining a team that did make the playoffs and a team that doesn't. How much of a distinction is that, do you think, in the minds of the free agents?
Well, if you give you two different routes. If you're going to have a top free agent come in, it means you don't believe in these guys and you got to darn near clean house. You have to clean this roster clean, and then you're attractable to another free agent outside of LeBron James. And you just put yourself in a tough situation. If they make the playoffs, maybe 2 or 3 of these guys hang around and they stay and they say, okay, I can trust you. There's something that we can build upon here. But if they don't, it's a bigger character flaw to those young boys and just like, they're not ready.
Yeah, I said this at the beginning of the year, that I thought that the best path for the Lakers would be if LeBron took a page from Kobe Bryant when he was with the U.S. national team, when everybody questioned, are there going to be enough balls to go around? And Kobe dedicated himself to the defensive end of the floor and said, this is where I'm going to lead the Redeem team. I'm going to sacrifice my game or my offensive touches, and I'm going to do the dirty work at the defensive end. I felt that the greatest leadership move that LeBron could have made was to do the same with this Lakers team, because I felt like between Rondo as a playmaker and the score and Lonzo and the scoring of Brandon Ingram and Josh Hart and Kyle Kuzma, I felt like they had enough offense. Where I thought that they were going to be failing was at the defensive end, and that they had a great defensive player in LeBron James who could set the pace and dedicate his effort there. Now, it would have really been a selfless thing, and it wouldn't look doing it for the national team. That's a couple weeks. This is talking about 82 games. I understand that there's a distinction, nonetheless, and that hasn't happened. But I really feel as if they would be in a completely different place if LeBron had decided to approach it that way. Because that's my big question: is can they defensively down the stretch in these last 20-some games play the kind of defense necessary to work their way into one of those last spots?
They can. They can. And it's not just defensively. They got to take care of the basketball. But, Rick, I strongly disagree. This is not the team that can handle an offensive load if LeBron James commits himself to defense. You take so much away from the game. You cannot tell me there's anybody else who you put the ball in their hands. And as a role player, played 10 years in the NBA, played in the darn playoffs, this is a role player's job to play defense.
Except they don't have those guys, though.
Their job.
They don't have role players that are defensive players. That's my issue.
They better figure it out.
Kyle Kuzma's not a defensive player.
Hold on, they don't have tight. Well, he better get his butt on the bench, or they better figure it out. Those are Luke Walton problems. You can't do it. You better figure it out. That's where Luke Walton gets his butt fired.
Well,
straight up.
That may happen.
They better figure it out.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not sure. I'm not going to blame the issues of the Lakers on Luke Walton when you have a mismatched roster. I'm going to go to Rob and Magic before I'm going to go to Luke as far as the issues with this team. This team is not built to take advantage of LeBron James. That's why I suggested something, and I granted it's radical. It's a radical idea, but nonetheless, radical situations call for radical concepts. And LeBron James devoting himself to the defensive end would certainly have been a radical idea. How are you feeling before we say goodbye? How are you feeling about the Warriors? Lost, as I mentioned a couple times already. Lost to the Heat once more. Buzzer beater by Wade. I saw them lose to the Heat at home as well. Are you still buying they're just coasting until they get there? Or are there reasons for concern? As I've said all year long, there should be.
Well, my big concern, and you pointed out early, and I always keep pointing back to it, is Draymond Green's health.
Yeah.
They need him. If there's a guy who can't go missing from the front line, it's him. DeMarcus Cousins just sat out due to rest or knee soreness, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe a little bit of both. I'm not 100%. Don't quote me there. But they're still the favorites, man. They're fine. They just showed you already what they're about. And, bro, just at the end of the day, Rick, as much as we want to pick and choose and nitpick stuff, when your third or fourth guy is Klay Thompson, bro, and he could easily go off for 50 points in a game, 50, 60, just something stupid, 37 and a quarter. He has that type of potential. You're going to be all right.
Yeah, I have questions about them defensively, and especially depending on how much they play DeMarcus. And it really comes down to, can Draymond play the same kind of defense? If you have DeMarcus on the floor, is he, if you have a dynamic five who can rim run, can he guard against the pick and roll and get back to defend that? I haven't seen that happen consistently. I have my doubts, and I know that I've been on an island when it comes to that in particular. The one last thing I wanted to hit you with, and I don't know if it's a thing or it's not a thing. I wonder what your take is on it. We've had Joel Embiid, who's missed a number of games because of knee soreness, and they're protecting it. And he's one of those guys where he's been pretty damn durable for how he came into the league. But anytime something acts up and they're a little unclear as to what it is, maybe I'm having a Markelle Fultz hangover here, it makes me a little nervous. It makes me nervous that, I mean, there's a reason they signed like a 35-page contract with him to cover them against all eventualities when it came to his health. Am I making too much of this, or is there reason to kind of keep your eye on Joel Embiid and how he feels physically down the stretch?
I mean, from the time he came in the league, Rick, I mean, his health was in question. But, if he missed games due to rest or knee soreness, I don't blow it out of proportion. Obviously, he's going to take pounding. This isn't a guy, unfortunately, that's going to be playing 20 years into the NBA just because it takes so much, bro. He's such a big guy. So he's not going to have the same longevity unless he just gets incredibly skinny. But nonetheless, Rick, I'm not worried about this year's playoffs. He's young enough; he'll be fine.
See, the other thing that I have with them, though, and people have wondered why they struggle at the end of games to close games, is they don't have that go-to guy. Their go-to guy is their big, and as you know, when your go-to guy is your big, it can be a challenge to run a play to get the ball in his hands in last-second situations. And I believe that is the Achilles heel when it comes to the Sixers if they should face the Toronto Raptors or the Boston Celtics, that is what's going to loom large. That's still the big missing piece for me with this Philadelphia 76ers team.
I think I'm fine with Jimmy Butler. He might not be Kyrie. But I think I'm fine with Jimmy.
He's
Butler.
like fourth on the depth. He's like the fourth option now.
That's fine and dandy in the regular season, but I'll take Jimmy Butler.
All right. You know what? We'll see how that goes. That does it for this episode of Bucher and Holland, subsidiary of Bucher and Friends, part of the United WeCast Network. I'm Rick Bucher. He's Ryan Hollins. Hey, you know what? We got through a podcast without like doing anything wrong.
Oh man, no setbacks. Hey guys, we missed the entire segment. Run that back.
All right, listen.
Oh gosh.
Thank you very much. We have been on hiatus when it comes to picking games on Friday night, but worry not. In our next podcast, we will be picking against the spread and the over-under. We'll be here working hard to make you some cash, and we'll also see how everything shakes down as far as NBA news between now and the next time that we record. In the meantime, as always, for Ryan and myself, thanks for listening.